welcome to Dead Man Talking. Let us pray. We see sunrise in the morning. Tonight's show, guys, is a long anticipated and requested final in an incredibly tense and thrilling series that's exclusive to the channel. As ever though, please do let us know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share and help build this channel and community. Bear in mind this is from the very start all the way through to the final, so if you want to skip ahead to the final chapter, go to the timestamp which I'll put in the description box below. Without further ado, let's get into tonight's story, entitled The Buckthorn Valley Horror, the final. Let's get straight into that. The cold of the wooden stock, the weights of the barrel. Hinges scream as wooden doors are forced open, and the cold wind whipped and whistled through the black abyss of the old building. But the shadows were deceptive. The darkness hung, a faint odour of pain, anger, and malice intent were tangible in the air. Realization struck like a knife in the back, splintering his spine. Something was there with him. Spurred by fright, he ran through the old squeaking door, back to the overgrown lumberyard. A terrifying roar from behind forced him to look. A blur of black mass leaping through the air. A natural reaction. He turned. Trying to raise his 308, it felt like a stone block, slow and heavy. Eons had passed in his mind before the deafening bang rings his ears and impacted the stock against his shoulder. Blood sprays from the dark mass as it veers to the left, and only a flash in the corner of his eyes before it passed him. The impact of the crash sends debris in all directions, and blood seeps from a wound, one slash before it fell. In his mind, prayers that it is only a scratch. He approached the dark mass as blood trickles through the gravel. Now what remains of an ear lays in tatters. It was a headshot, yes, but not fatal. Come on, Ellis. You can do this. Run! Just bloody run! Ah, the gods! I can't even feel my feet. This place. That thing. Fuck! Run! Contort your body. Fire! Chamber the next! Fire again! Blank! Ah! This goddamn gun! Where is it? It's so fast. Oh, God save me. Run, you idiot. Just run again. I don't feel the bushes. Ignore the pain. You haven't got time. Turn, aim, fire, again! Last round. It's not far to the house. Got to get to the house faster, you idiot. God, age just caught up with me. These legs feel old. But that thing is coming. Now, I have to fight both age and death. Great. God, Ellis, what was that? It's not a bear, that's for sure. No bear climbs like that, moves like that. It's close. I can't see it, but it's coming. The door! Come on, you old bastard. Be good for something and get that door open. But what after? Never leave again? No. Come on, just get it done. Across the river, up the stairs, the door, in. Ah! Twist, point, aim. At what? Nothing's there. It's gone? No. I can't believe it gave up. Gave up, or it's out of its territory. Did it just give up? Yeah, that's right, it gave up. Oh God, this scratch, it burns. Hot and weeping, blood trickling, darker than normal, running down my arm. Damn, I can't stay, even if it's gone. I have to go. I have to go too. I have to get to Trevor. I've got a story, said Scott as he passed around the bottle of spiced rum. His audience, his closest friends, waiting in anticipation as they gazed over the dancing flames. He leaned down, poking the embers with a crooked stick, watching smoke whisked into the endless dark of the night sky. Flames hissed and spat, white sparks that sporadically jigged as they climbed. their glow mimicking that of the stars that were above. His lips parted once more. Have I ever told you about the Buckthorn Valley horror? Not for me, mate. Scott's hand waved away the dark liquor that Jacob was passing back to him. If I'm going to tell a good story, I'll need a level head. Sammy reached and eagerly received the spirit bottle. Yeah, what are you trying to do, Jacob? Getting pissed? I haven't heard this one, and it sounds like it's going to be messing me up. Jacob chuckled in response. Is that why you snatched that bottle so fast, huh? You trying to build up some courage? Sammy flipped the bird, and the rest of the group made a childish woo, and everyone began laughing heartily. Light-heartedly, Scott broke the laughter. All right, Scott continued. Leave Sammy alone. It's not his fault he's a chicken. He looked at his friend. Sammy had the air of a boy who never rose from his bed before 11 a.m. Anyway, I'm guessing that's a no then. All right, I'll tell you, and I'll start at the beginning. Scott's eyes took upon a darkness. His gaze penetrated the mind and heart like a Trojan horse, unleashing anticipation and unavoidable fear into his friends. It all started in the upper part of Washington State, near the border, probably not too far from where we are now. The year was 1976. The demand for timber was high, and people who had the land were selling it to the logging companies. All apart from Mr. Ellis J. Buckthorn, who figured he would hire a crew to begin logging his newly acquired 1,000 acres. It wasn't long till he had himself a crew of 30 or so men, and they began work. Now, after a few months, they had established a logging road through the estate and a mill to process the wood. The logging had been so successful that in just 3 years, 150 acres of the valley had been cut. With a prosperous future in mind, Ellis chose to put everything into a new family house that was built in the south end of the very same valley. It was beautiful. 3 stories, 6 bedrooms. A log and stone construction, not 30 yards from a stone-bed river that ran down from the hills and passed in front of an expanse of grass meadow. After seeing his newly constructed home, Ellis had a change of heart and decided that the valley was too beautiful to cut down. Instead, he began to purchase land for his workers to log. 10 years had passed, but time after time, Ellis would be outbid for the land by larger, more wealthy companies, and eventually he was forced to reopen the Buckthorn lumberyard. 10 years, and the mill had not been touched. Something was bound to have called the abandoned building home. Ellis had a few men clear the yard, make sure nothing was in residence. Eventually, in 1988, the Buckthorn lumber mill was up and running again, and everything was like the old times, right up until the foreman called the landline early one morning, telling him the men who worked late were seeing dark shapes darting between the trees and refused to come back to work. So what was it the men were seeing? Jim questioned. A group of 4 men said they had seen what they said could only have been an emaciated black bear. They were questioned by the foreman and Ellis, who assumed they must have been lying, probably to get some kind of compensation. So he fired them the same day. Jess managed to calm everyone down to a more or less quiet state. Keep going. She motioned to Scott. I want to hear what happened. Believe me, you wish you didn't. Scott's own girlfriend squeezed up closer to him and held tightly to his hand. She was newer to the group and wasn't big on scary stories, but it was evident to all around that they loved each other dearly. I'll stop if you want, babe. He spoke softly and kissed her head. She looked up at him with pearlescent blue eyes that dazzled him into the light of the fire. No, it's okay. I'll just sit closer to you from now on. Nodding his head, he turned back to the gang. Scott resumed his tale. Ellis hired a hunter to deal with the problem animal. The hunter surveyed the area for 3 weeks and found nothing. He gave his findings to the foreman, who then sent the men back to work, telling them that the problem was over, but told the hunter to continue hunting. The hunter argued with him, but eventually conceded to the idea, on one condition. He told the foreman to reduce work in the area the animal was last seen, and he would go and hunt the bear. It took the animal 2 weeks to show itself, I've heard he blew its brains out through its arse. Jim gestured the necessary hand actions to emphasise his comment. Not quite, replied Scott. Courtney's soft voice that was so close to his shoulder let slip a few trembling words. So the bear got away? He shook his head. No, babe. He got the bear. But not before 3 men had been killed. Jess gasped. Oh, damn! How did they die? Sev snorted. Ha 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 ha! How do you think, dummy? The bear mauled them. That's what bears do. Well, mates, that's the thing. This bear was said to be skinny. Some of the other workers were later questioned, but he broke off once more and took a swig of bud. No one knows what they said. Was it covered up or something? Scott looked at Jacob. There is that, as well as if the bear was capable of killing these men at all. Obviously it could. Sammy took a swig of his own beer and also made a gesture with his hands. It was a bear. Scott smirked. He couldn't contain his giggle at his drunk friend. He leaned in and pulled a more controlled expression. Tell me, Sam, could an emaciated male bear, one that should be 300 or 400 pounds, but was reportedly less than 200, could an animal like that commit such an atrocity? The official report was 3 men dead after a bear attack, but the unofficial story said the legs of the man, who was 15 feet off the ground, were ripped off at the waist. Another was so badly mangled that he was unrecognisable as a human being. Sammy pondered as he rocked back and forth, his face beginning to start losing colour as he was blatantly picturing the event in his own mind. He slumped down and begged the question. What about the third? Well, that's what made all the workers leave. The third man was found impaled 30 feet up a tree. His head was never recovered. So that's why it's called Buckthorn Valley Horror. No, Jacob, it's not. That was just the beginning. The reason it got that name is what happened 8 years ago. Unexpectedly, Ellis shows up at his brother's house in Bellevue. He developed a fever, and not more than a few days later, he died in hospital. It was so unexpected. He became too ill before he could have anything done with Buckthorn Manor. So his brother inherited the land and house and made it a holiday home. Didn't Ellis tell his brother? Retorted Jess. If I knew there was a monster in my woods, I'd tell the first person I could. Well, no one knows, because when Trevor Buckthorn was questioned about his brother, he said Ellis was disorientated, borderline hallucinogenic. The guy had an infection. He must have been so out of it that he couldn't say anything. 11 years passed since, and his son, who was 19, took the opportunity to take a group of friends and enjoy the summer break there. Jim picked up. Yeah, I heard about that from my dad. He was a sheriff's deputy, and he heard about it from a deputy who was sent to investigate. Everyone went missing. Nothing was found, just blood and carnage. Dude, are you going to let me tell this story? As I was saying, it was 2009 in North Washington State. Wow, I know that's a bit of a cliffhanger ending there for you guys, but fantastically written, great format, great humour, and a very good tension building up in that storyline. Thank you ever so much, S.Binx, for working with me once again and letting me have this exclusive story. Fantastic stuff. As ever, guys and girls, please do let us know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share and help build this community and channel. Already the community and channel is growing and growing so fast each day by sort of 15 or 25 subscribers, which is absolutely incredible, guys. So humbled, so very proud. I realise I haven't been, putting out longer stories and not as many uploads. To be honest with you guys, it's my own health and stress and depression's got me, beats me back sometimes. Plus some training, getting back to work soon after my back's all fixed up. But I promise you, we're going nowhere. And as soon as I can, I record. Got an absolutely action-packed and blood-curdling true story compilation that I'm putting together speaking with various witnesses at the moment for the past couple of weeks. We're going to save that all up and have a nice compilation to bring out for Christmas as a Christmas special. As ever, guys, above all, please do remember, be safe, not sorry. And now for part 2 of the Buckthorn Valley horror. Let's get straight into that. Walking along a frosty back road, hitchhiking alone was the best thing that Anderson could think to do. He had been travelling east to west from Carolina to Washington. Just another tick on the bucket list, he said to himself. He was moving briskly. The March wind was picking up and it made a cold air like a synth. It made short work of his clothing. Ugh, it's cold. He looked at the sky, and it's getting dark. I don't think I'm going to see anyone for a while. Perhaps it's time to find a spot to rest. It's cold. He kept going, quickened his pace as his urge to get warm was fueling his tired legs. Something was on the road in front. Something dead. He proceeded with caution, pulling bear spray from his pocket for protection. He came up to the body. He'd been on the road for a long time, and had seen quite a few roadkill. This didn't seem different. Only it did. This deer, it wasn't killed by a car, and the blood was still warm. It was steaming. This animal was hunted and had been partly eaten. He froze to the spot. All his senses went into overdrive. Something had stepped out behind him. Something big. Several months later. Riley leaned forward. His clammy hands were clasping his stomach, which was making a horrendous gurgling noise. Hey, Jason. Easy down this dirt-ass back road. My gut's killing me. This isn't a back road. It's the old loggers' road. Jason checked his rearview mirror. We lost the girls. I told Megan that her little VW would hate these old roads. A spark pinged in Mac's brain. He reached for his pocket. I'll give Sam a call. Tell her where to pull off. Jason could help but smirk at his best mate and his city life ignorance. Don't waste your time, bro. They don't have a signal. If it's not a landline, it isn't getting a signal. Riley, clearly agitated by his stomach, began to shift around reluctantly in his seat. I feel like I'm going to shit my pants. Bro, I told you not to eat that dirt-ass Mexican street food. We've got something normal, but you had to go and eat some shit from a street stand. I love you, little bro, but you deserve the shits. If anything, for just being so stupid. One look at that taco. I wouldn't have even given it to Champ. Ain't that right, Champ? The Belgian shepherd in the back seat gave a bark of recognition, as if to say, yeah, that's right, shitty tacos. Wow, if we're taking everyone on a hike this week, you're going to feel like crap. Yeah, I know, man. But Kaylee is coming. It's my chance to lay on some game. An uproar of laughter came from the passenger seat of the Range Rover. Mate, the only thing you'll be lying in is a stink in every toilet in the house. Perhaps the smell will work in your favour. She might feel so ill, you might get a chance when she's throwing up. Jason suddenly swerved and instantly caught the attention of everyone. Max shot back in his seat. Fuck! What was that? Jason huffed. It was just a deer. Something's probably spooked it. Different from the Starbucks and football fields, eh, man? Man, I just hope its trip is going to be what you said it would be. I don't want to get eaten by no damn deer. That shit's bad for my football career. Jason's focus turned to his friend and feigned a serious expression. It's not the deer you need to worry about. What you need to watch out for is the pine marten. What? Max spoke, his head dashing around as he looked scrutinizingly at the forest edge. Ah, hell no. I don't like the sound of that. What is it, bro? I swear, I ain't going in the woods if there's a pine marten in there. Riley laughed so hard, he nearly laid a stink right there in the back of the Range Rover. Mac looked back at the blonde-haired 17-year-old. What's so funny? Hey, how big is a pine marten anyways? With the few minutes between holding his stomach that was churning faster with every belch of laughter. Dude, is it like this big?
Riley roughly sized out the infamous creature. Shit, that's tiny. Man, stop taking the piss. Riley blabbed out something along the lines of, like squirrel mixed with a fox. Shit, Jason. Don't do that to me, man. I don't like the woods as it is. And then you'll try some bull about some pine marten? The pine marten is the last of our concerns. You mean Dad? Commented Riley. You told him we were going to the Twins' lake house. He's going to be so pissed when he realises you swiped the keys to Uncle Ellis's place. Jason stared down the old dirt road. Do you remember when we used to come here as children? Mum and Dad would bring us up here almost every month. We would hike, stick burgers on the grill. He even taught us how to hunt in those very woods. And then one day, 5 years ago, he ups and decides we're never going back. No explanation. Just cut it out of our lives. He had reasons. Did he though? Did he really? Because he forgot to tell them to us. Anyway, we're old enough to make our own choices. It's time to grab life, little brother. Enjoy this week. It's probably the last chance we'll ever have. The evening sun was slowly beginning to fade as the silver 4x4 scouted the outline of the circular drive at the front of the old family home. The three boys and dog briskly exited the car. Jason was only beat to the door by enthusiastic bawls of Riley. Come on, bro, pass me the key. I'm going to shit myself. Jason chuckled as he walked towards the dusty stone steps. And themselves were only a few years old. No one had been about apart from his father, while he would check in twice a year. He threw his sibling the key and watched in pure amusement as the 17-year-old fumbled with the door lock before diving in and racing out of sight. Jason was alerted by Champ, who began to bark at a light blue VW Beetle. Or what was a light blue, but was more of a dirt-covered Beetle, with only a few flecks of blue still showing. At this point, it definitely earned its name, the Bug. The Bug pulled in off the overgrown dirt road and parked up behind the dusty but far more recognisable 4x4. A slim brunette, no taller than 5'11", stepped out of the driver's side door. Her companion, a mixed-race girl, stepped out from the passenger side. She was shorter than her friend, but she was curvy and styled an afro. The tall brunette turned around and released the driver's door, and a third passenger emerged from the back of the V-Dub. She was blonde and a similar build to the first, but a good few inches shorter. Unlike the other two, who were unmistakably 18 or 19, she was clearly a year or even two younger. A warm smile climbed Jason's cheeks as his eyes connected with the tall brunette. Hey babe, how did you find the drive? I thought we'd lost you on that last bit. He walked back down the leaf-covered steps of the front porch and gave Megan a warm and embracing hug, shortly followed by a kiss. Yeah, we nearly got lost. You told me the roads were bad, but look at the Bug. Yeah, but it will be worth it, he said as he smiled down at her. Well, at least we're all here, she said as she turned to look at the others who were busy unloading the two cars. Well, almost all of us. His slow reply gave Megan cause for concern. The twins. You know they won't show. They either outright bail or get too stoned and can't remember. See, that's where you're wrong, because Blake already called when we were at the gas station. He said him and Brogan were packing and they would leave in the evening. They'll get here by 11 tomorrow night. If you say so. Just don't cry when they bail. He snuggled and unleashed a volley of tickles. She screamed and then cuddled him closer. She pulled back from his body and looked past and over his shoulder. Wow, Jason. This place is beautiful. Well, let's get everything inside. Jason wholeheartedly agreed with her. His head rose and a smirk creeped over his devilish face. I think the workforce is distracted. Megan swiveled her head. She giggled as she indicated the boot of the Range Rover. A tall, mixed-race Mac was kissing the afro-sporting Sammy, all while Kaylee was struggling with a densely packed hiking bag. Wait! A blur of blonde streaked from the doorway and immediately aided the petite blonde with a load. Simultaneously striking up a conversation about hiking experiences, Megan turned back to meet Jason's cheesy grin, and with both hands planted on his chest, she giggled once more. It didn't take the crew long to get everything set up. Their temporary sanctuary was as spacious and warm as Jason had remembered. The front door opened to a short but wide hallway. A coat closet was the first door, and the downstairs bathroom the next. The hallway gave out to a huge expanse of open space. On the near side wall, a large stone fireplace took centre stage and was decorated with an old lever action and an impressive buckhead. 2 armchairs, a large curving couch and another, slightly smaller, were arched to face what must have been an expensive flat-screen TV that hung from the wall. An old pine slab coffee table set within an arch, no doubt to provide a safe place for placing a beer or even 10. Stairs ran from the left of the hallway and ended and led to the landing that gave a plan view of the entire living space. The remaining left side of the ground floor was taken entirely by a kitchen complete with an island, with the exception of the modest laundry room that was set a few feet below the floor level. The first floor landing narrowed to a corridor that gave access to the 4 bedrooms, eventually ending in a balcony that was large enough for 5 to stand comfortably. Jason could remember standing there as a kid and watching the surrounding wildlife before his bedtime. He looked back on his childhood here and the rules that were put in place. He remembered being told he couldn't do this or that. Now this time, he was the man of the house. He made the rules. He also knew that being the man of the house had afforded him and Megan the master suite. The second floor bedroom took the entire floor and consisted of a large open space that was main occupancy for a log-framed king-size bed, along with a rocking chair and a suitable sized bathroom. Naturally, the top floor had a balcony that allowed one to view over both the river and the grass meadow that lay beyond its banks, all the way up to the forest edge, some 200 yards back. The first floor was occupied by Sammy and Mac in a room that gave a view to the front property. Riley and Kaylee occupying the next 2 rooms, leaving the last room to be occupied by the twins when they arrived. All was settled in, and due to the effects of the several hours of drinking, the group splayed themselves across the various chairs and sofas that surrounded the pine coffee table. The group never seemed closer, chorusing and entangling themselves in tales and reminiscing memories. Ha ha ha, man, that was one hell of a night. The campus security guy had no clue. He was a creep, that's for sure, stated Megan. He always looked funny at us, like he wanted to rip off our clothes or something. Mac chuckled again, this time even louder than before. That's because he did. He got fired for peeping at the girls in the changing room. Jason's eyes passed over the old cuckoo clock that took stake upon the fireplace. The dark varnished wood didn't match the pine mantle, but it was a gift bestowed by relations in Great Britain, and Jason was almost fond of it, if the broken spring didn't make it so damn loud whenever it struck midnight. Currently, it read 10:45 p.m. That's enough of that conversation, spared Sammy. I want to change the subject. Jason, tell us about this place. Did your dad build it? Not our dad, interjected Riley. Our uncle did. Jason took a swig and continued the reply from his younger brother. That's true. Our uncle owned this entire valley. He built this house in the late 80s. I'm not surprised. It's so beautiful here, retorted Sammy. Her eyes still explored the immense house like a puppy exploring the woods for the first time. I'd have done the same in his shoes. Jason grinned wildly. Oh, I don't think you would have. As he spoke, he took his drink and reclined into his seat. He crossed his feet and rested them upon the corner of the pine table, in the way of an old grandfather would. No one in the house would challenge his actions. You wouldn't. Not if you knew the reason my dearly departed uncle lost his business. Everyone slowed. Confusion spread like fire between them, apart from Jason, who has an imperceptible smug grin. What do you mean, dude? Stop trying to spook me again. Mac took a swig of his beer and mid-sentence. That Martin shit wasn't funny. Sammy looked at him for a moment with brief confusion, but he simply waved her off with a dismissive gesture. Jason winked at his younger brother. Should we tell, then, the story of old Uncle Ellis? Riley's grin widened. His hands reached down to stroke the ears of Champ, who was enjoying the warmth of the fire. He looked up and his devilish grin widened. Megan looked over and then back to Jason. Uncertainty was written all across her face. What do you mean? Jason's smile grew. I mean, babe, something happened here in 1993. A long while back. Our uncle inherits this land from our grandfather. Hell, no one even knew he had it. But since Ellis was the oldest, it went to him. So our uncle, being the level-headed man he was, decides to make an investment and hires a crew so he can begin his own logging company. I mean, what else do you do with an entire valley? Now, about a year in, Riley broke him off. He realises he's been a dick and he's destroying our family's wealth, and instead of wasting the entire valley, he uses his new financial gains to build this place. He then had to make a living, so he invested the last of his funds into buying forest area. Idaho, Lower State Washington, Alaska, all the areas that were prime for logging. The problem was, Ellis was a small fish in a big pond. He started off well, but within 6 years his competitors had grown bigger, and even though he'd win a few bids, they were all on small, hard-to-reach plots. He would lose the prime areas, and the losses became more than he could afford. Riley continued. 10 years later, he eventually had no choice but to resume logging this valley, and the mill is almost as he left it. Almost? Questioned Kaylee. Something was living in the old mill. Ellis sent in a few men to have the place checked over. They found bones from various animals, deer, shit like that. So they cleared it up and began work. But something happened. What happened? Riley closed in on the group. The men said they kept seeing something. His crew began to drop. 4 men were killed, and then they all left. Mac was now visibly nervous. He even began to drink his beer in small sips. So, what did your uncle do about it? He went back to Idaho. He knew it wouldn't be hard to find a crew. Yeah, he had a problem with convincing them to work for him. Lumber crews gossip like college girls, and stories about what happened at Buckthorn lumber site spread through every bar and club before Ellis even had a chance. Then, 4 years later, Dad and Mum get a call from the hospital, suffering an infection. They go to see him, but 2 days after arriving, he died in hospital. Well, that's so sad. Kaylee put her hand on Riley's arm. I'm sorry to hear that. The boy blushed for a moment, but kept his composure. Yeah, I'm over it now. Thank you. At that moment, Riley's stomach made a disgusting, violent gurgling sound that sent him dashing to the toilet. Sammy looked imperceptibly at Meg and gave her a flash of a wink. Kaylee, why don't you go see if he's okay? He'd probably be grateful. Kaylee's sad smile lit up with enthusiasm. I'm gonna go check on him. She jumped up, took a bottle of water and quickly tattled up the stairs. Jason blew Meg a kiss. Right, now, the kids are out of the way. Let me tell you the real story. What Riley said was true, but there's a lot of parents didn't tell us. The only reason I know the truth is because I overheard them discussing it the night my uncle met Jesus. Everyone sunk down in their seats, just a little bit further. Jason began his side of the towel. An hour had passed like a fleeting moment. People's drinks were flat, warm. They haven't even touched them. Jason was a natural. He told a story like Da Vinci could paint, and the events of Buckthorn were his masterpiece, his Mona Lisa. All that was left were 3 mangled corpses, and blood was everywhere. The room was silent. The type of silence that, if tumbleweed were to blow through the room, not a single head would turn. Sammy, who looked like she regretted even having a thought to ask Jason about his family's home, lifted her now sunken head. She muttered in an ever so slightly shaken voice. What was the story, the one the men told? What was the rumour? It was a monster residing in the valley. It killed all who dared to harm the balance of the ecosystem, and that when the men started logging, it awoke and came for them from the depths of the old cave. The old clock struck midnight. Its cuckoo chime made everyone's head dart in shock. All except from Jason and Riley, who anticipated the noise and retaliated with childish chuckles. Champ lifted his long-haired head. Brown eyes looked weary, as if he felt an immense sorrow. He gave one solemn bark. The day was already passing on by the time they awoke. Headaches and dry mouths were cured with a fried breakfast and a good ground coffee. Compliments of Sammy, whom had started work that summer as a barrister. They spent the free time exploring their new abode. The deck out back was spacious, and although built in the 80s, it had been renovated and was now adorned with a hot tub that provided the day's main entertainment, along with speakers blasting all throughout the day. Jason, Mac and Riley were busy playing with Champ. Kaylee, tired of girly gossip, sat on the last step before the grass, watching the guys while simultaneously reading a novel. Megan and Sammy, never bored of girlish gossip, sat in the hot tub, their heads nodding. Waves of laughter washed over them both. It was abundantly clear they were gossiping. Gossiping and planning like schoolgirls, they started, pulled in close, chuckled and simultaneously hushed one another, as if the rest of them didn't already know the plots they were twisting. True freedom was the atmosphere of the day. But, as the old saying goes, before they knew it, it was turning dusk. Night came. Jason sat and stared at the fireplace. The hands of the cuckoo clock bore the time, 10:55. He thought. Blake and Brogan said they would be here by 11 at least. The fuck are those two dropouts? Hey, Jay. He tore from his thoughts and glanced towards the sound of the noise, towards Megan. Didn't you say the twins would be here? Mac huffed in disappointment. A sound, it seemed, came naturally whenever he heard those words. Them two. Don't ever expect them on time. They get so high they forget their speeding and they're probably sitting in County Jail. That's true, chimed Sammy. They won't get charged, considering their cousin is a deputy, but they will keep them overnight so they can sleep off the dope. But we can't know for sure, since we can't call them. Jason relaxed back into the sofa, crossing his arms over his head in the process, like a jester whom had a cool trick in mind. He sat and hopelessly contained a smug expression. You guys are probably right. Megan was suspicious of her boyfriend's laid-back approach. What if they got stuck or lost? Jason, unwilling to change position again, had an arrogant but smuggish grin. Look, he said, as he relinquished all resistance to his smug grin. If they don't show, I'll just give Blake a call in the morning. Wait, Max sat up and was visibly confused. I thought you said there weren't any signal out here. How are you going to call a guy if you don't have any signal? Jason winked, finally changing position. He upped the crux. There's a radio in my backpack, and I have the frequency for the two-way that they have in their truck. I'll just radio in and check on them. The night was passing by with the aid of a crisp breeze. Jason stood in his trunks, watching the treetops shimmer with the light of the summer moon. He was alone. Megan had fallen asleep the second she hit the pillow. He gazed out. From this elevation, he could see the parting of the trees where the forest gave way to the dirt road. A pair of dim lights sloped their way down, almost too far for him to see, but he knew someone was coming. His grin widened, ever so slightly. The 1980 Ford Bronco cruised through the darkness. Both twins were singing along to Sum 41, In Too Deep. Brogan hit the volume down to an acceptable level and popped the question that had been held in for the past mile. Yo, bro, how far down this road we got left? Jason said we would pass an old mill. We have a few miles left and we just have to follow it down. Sweet, bro. Then we got time to burn this. Brogan removed a long, pristinely rolled joint from his jacket pockets and presented the masterpiece to his brother. Sweet, bro. Light it up. He then pressed the butt end between his lips. With a click and a flash from his lighter, the joint smouldered and bloomed bright. Oh, bro, take a toke. Here. Blake reached across to take the blunt. Whoa, man. Oh, that's some good stuff. The two passed the joint back and forth until there was nothing but a small bud left. Oh, man, I'm flying high. Brogan squinted his puffy eyes, and something dashed from the bushes and suddenly lunged at the driver's wheel. Whoa, look out! A deer froze in the headlights of the oncoming twins. The twins reacted, but the heavy weed had made them slow and uncoordinated. Oh, shit! Squealing tyres were followed by dirt flying from behind the wheels as they spun uncontrollably. The car swerved and then nosedived head first into the ditch, colliding into a seasoned fir tree. The hood was arched and smoke was desperately escaping the wreck. What? What the fuck, bro? Bro? Brogan looked over at the driver and was met with the grimmest view. One of the lower branches had pinned Blake through his sternum. His head was lurched forward and blood oozed from his gaping mouth. Brogan tore away from the seat and attempted to stop his brother's wound from seeping, although the driver's seat was already saturated. Blake's jaw twitched as he took a raspy gasp that gurgled with fluid. His agonizing face was able to flicker with life and his head lifted ever so slightly, his eyes fixed on Brogan. Oh no, please, bro, please, oh fuck, no, what, no, bro, come on now, no. A howl of immense proportions suddenly filled the night air. It was now laden with a putrefying stench. Brogan froze. His eyes were scanning the darkness. Blood was dripping from his brow. He hadn't escaped the crash unscathed. He pulled his jumper up to clear his vision. A stench, followed by a deep, vibrating growl, triggered something deep within Brogan. He fell into a fight or flight, and in desperate frenzy, he fought with a branch, trying to free his twin. Blake groaned in semi-conscious pain. His eyes imperceptibly tweaked. What facial control he had left formed itself into complete, unadulterated terror. At that point, Brogan caught on. It wasn't him that his dying brother was staring at. It was something behind him. A vibration passed through the truck as a scraping sound sheared paint from the bonnet. 5 dark, curved bear-like claws ran up the metal. Blake was in a state of petrification as the grotesque hand stopped. Everything was silent, only the rasping pants from Brogan as he slowly let go. A few moments passed. Brogan looked intensely about for whatever was stalking. From the darkness, a gargantuan head swung down and peered into the shattered window. Its snout was long, disfigured, twisted, and grotesque. Thick, yellow fangs parted the lips. The dark, wiry fur was parted by faded scars that ran down the length of the nose and across its cheek. It leaned in further. One of the ears on the top of its head was long, the other was missing. Brogan could make out clumps of skin that had once been, but was instead a healed over wound. The head twisted and facing down the remaining twin, its maw churned into a sadistic, canid grin. But its eyes, the yellow, amber glow, felt to Blake that his very soul was at stake. He could hear its breath, feel the warm stench consume his senses, and fill him with a knowing of complete hopelessness. Suddenly, the beast clamped its clawed hand around the top of the broken door, and with one swift motion, the creature retracted itself from the opening and tore the door from the Bronco. Brogan began to scream as he made a dive at the back seats, and the beast was swift. It dexterously grabbed a hold of the teenage boy, claws slicing into his calf and wrenching him from the vehicle. Demonic howls of agony and terror dominated the forest. Glowing, amber eyes slowly faded. The sound of the thrashing body being dragged disappeared into the moonlit night. It was eventually drowned by the chorus of nightly creatures.
The Buckthorn Valley Horror, Part 3. Let's get straight into that. Kaylee awoke. Something was leading her to the hallway. An emotion, animalistic sense compelled her to approach the door. Its slightly dried hinges leaked a squeal as it gently yielded to her touch. Upon the first floor hallway, she gazed at a silhouette standing on the balcony. His wavy blonde hair glistened as the moonlight embraced him. He saw her and smiled, but the flutter in her heart died. His face was mangled. Skin and flesh were ripped from the bone. His body like an abstract art piece. Blood covered his chest. Amongst it, slashes and gouge marks wept. His cuts were rent from his abdomen. She stood in horror. Her legs grew weak as a pair of amber eyes appeared from the darkness. They towered above him. Crooked, razor-like teeth sunk into his shoulder. She rose. The sound of Megan banging on the door bellows her freshly stocked senses. "Come on, everybody's ready. It's time to haul ass." Thickets and small trees grew down each side and were slowly beginning to choke the aging trail that ran eastwards along the flow of the river. This particular trail, Jason knew from experience, ran in a loop around the east side of the valley. He also knew that before turning inwards, it opened into an area that the group could stop, enjoy some lunch, and the boys could go do a spot of ball. The group approached their destination. The sun reached its pinnacle in the sky, and its rays were angelic. The team set to work. Each knew their role, and got setting up an area for lunch. Time passed, and the boys had played various games, both with Champ and amongst themselves. An hour or two, the women did their usual gossip, and once the boys finally had enough of their sport, they retired back to the girls for a much-needed bottle of bud.
Everything was just as, well, planned. None of it seemed to matter to Jason. Something was on his mind. Why hadn't the twins showed? Or at least radioed? Something seemed different. He sighed and cracked a beer. Everyone was enjoying a communal chat. Jason sat alone, not enjoying the day like his friends. He was visibly annoyed. At least that's how he looked. Fuck it. I need to radio Brogan. I bet they're lost. The pain of being proved wrong stung the young man. He saw himself as the leader, and to have someone prove him wrong was like a kick in the groin of his pride. He reached into his pack and took out the radio set. He had to pause for a moment, his mind working as he messed with the dials. He raised the yellow handset to his mouth and clicked the large red button before speaking. Hey Brogan, where are you two? If you're getting this, drop the dope and respond. The unmistakable sound of the Belgian Shepherd sounding off seemed to only draw Kaylee's attention, stopping dead in their tracks. Jason's face was stunned in a fluster. He really didn't like being wrong. Jay, take another beer. Max strolled too and popped the squat next to his mate. I told you they wouldn't come. Jason served him the classic. I don't want to hear I told you so, look. They probably got pulled over. He raised the mic once more. Hey, Brogan? Kaylee's ears pricked, her hearing being strained, but she could make out the sound of something crackling in the distance, like a whisper on the wind. Shh. Riley noted the look of concentration that was plastered all over the golden-haired girl. Hey, Kaylee, what's wrong? I said be quiet. Jason, use the mic again. Jason sent out another call, and like clockwork, Champ let off another volley of barks. Before anyone could say anything, he flew like an arrow, clearing brush and gullies. Before anyone could say a word, he was gone. Hey, Champ! Get back here! Where are you going? Shh! Kaylee motioned for everyone to be silent as she dropped her pack. Its cumbersome weight was dragging her down, and she was pleased to get rid of it, even for a little while. Do you hear that? Jason, make a call on the radio again. Jason hesitated for a moment before clicking the large red button. Hello, Brogan. Blake. Are either of you out there? The faint sound echoed through the trees. See, there it is again. It's you, Jason. It's your voice. But it's coming from that way. The distant barking from the Belgian Shepherd echoed through the woodland, and Riley was the second to confirm her suspicions. Champ's found something. I can hear him. Whatever it is, it's picking up your radio signal, and Champ's hearing your voice. What's up that way, Jay? Jason looked at his friend. His expression of unknowing did not bring the relief Mac was looking for. I'm sorry, but we never went up that way. The trail always leads to here, and then we always turn back. But I know that if you follow the direction Champ went, eventually you'll come to the road. It will be around that point, a few hundred yards after the split in the old loggers' road. Look, perhaps it's the twins. They could have pulled over for the night, sleeping off all the weed they smoke. I don't know, Sammy. Why, if they were a few miles away, would they stop to sleep? And, even if they were stoned, this just doesn't feel right. Whatever it is, we should find out. Champ's persistent barking grew even louder until the group emerged from the thickets. There it was. Champ was sitting next to the crumpled Bronco. The inside of the truck was humming with flies. The branch that was through his chest had allowed Blake's bloating organs to erupt out, splaying across the dashboard. Congealed blood was everywhere. Riley, upon catching up with the group, saw the devastation in front of him, turned and simultaneously vomited with a hideous wrenching sound. What? What happened? With fear running wild in his eyes. Blake, he's... I know, Mac. Look, there's got to be an explanation. There's only Blake here. That means Brogan is missing. And if he's missing, he's alive. Alive? The hell he is, screamed Kaylee. He's dead. Something killed them, and then tore off the door and took Brogan. No, exclaimed Jason. Blake, he died from the crash. Mac was inspecting the torn off door. Whoa. Jason, what the hell ever grabbed this door? Grabbed it and crushed the frame. Jay, what could do that? Rip the door off a truck? Brogan, replied Jason. His eyes were uncomfortably steady. A person can do incredible things when they're pumped full of adrenaline, and sometimes something stupid like run off and get lost. So if he's out here, he's lost, scared, and probably freezing. We must find him. Mac's thoughts were swimming. Nothing Jason said made any sense, but he trusted his friend. Something he would later regret with every fibre. Okay, Jay. How do we go find Brogan? Jason, look. Megan was standing back from the boys. Her arms were wrapped amongst Sammy's afro. She was pointing down towards the edge of the forest line, indicating a large footprint that was damaged but still vaguely recognisable. Kaylee approached. There. She spotted a more distinct mark and came to life like a hound on a trail. He must have been pulled. Look, that looks like hand marks. He probably got dragged and grabbed by the bank. She dropped to her knee, and like a seasoned detective, she examined the scores in the ground. Something was dragging him, she thought. But what? These are finger marks. She pointed out a set of scores in the mud. So he slipped, tried to pull himself up, and what? Answered Jay. She scowled with irritation. He was blocking her at every turn. Her hand scouted the track smoothly, dexterously, one would assume professionally. She glided over the soil. Calm exuded from her. A shake in her fingertips was the only reminder that she was just 16. It was noticed but overlooked. Everybody's tensions were high, and it was now understandable. What Kaylee didn't know about the forest was few and far between. Her father and uncle were both forest rangers, and, although she had never had first-hand experience in tracking a person, she had recited the key elements over and over, forever with the job title in her sights. She scanned across the digs and scrapes in the dirt, still moving slowly with the trowel as she did so, right up until her hand stopped over a print. This one was clearer than the rest. Something was jittering in her belly, and it went unnoticed. The tremor in her legs, perceivable only by Jason. She caught his eye. For a split second, she thought she could see excitement in his gaze, but he caught on almost instantly and began to feign ignorance. Why was he excited? Is he crazy? Does he know? Megan's voice flipped the switch back to reality. What is it? She looked back at the print. Something wrong. The gates, the depth as well as the size. It looked too large. But then, did she even notice Brogan's shoe size? Or what kind of shoe he even wore? That was more of her sister's area. She always loved fashion, and it hadn't rubbed off. Perhaps he slipped. He had been disorientated from the impact. Thoughts ran through her head, trying to piece together what happened. But she could feel something was very wrong. Everything was telling her to get out, get everyone to the house, and leave. It was only for a moment that she hesitated before she stood to face the group. With a confident voice that seemed to lack all confidence, she revealed her findings. These aren't human tracks. The look on everyone's face was indescribable. What do you mean, not human? Replied Mac. Don't listen to her. She clearly has no idea what she's saying. Those are Brogan's tracks, and if he's hurt, we haven't got long to find him. Jason looked like a general giving a battle speech. His brown hair didn't flutter in the wind. It stood strong, defiant. We need to find him, he continued. His life is in our hands. Mac nodded his head, the way someone nods when they convince themselves. It's the right idea. Yeah, he's right. He stood tall, believing in his courage. We have to find him. We owe it to Blake. Kaylee couldn't believe what she was hearing. But those are not Brogan's footprints. For one, they're barefooted, and not the human shape. She looked around at the others, desperate for someone to believe her, someone to see past Jason's cover-up. They looked at her like she was a crazy person. Something took. Jason turned, and with a single word cut her off. No, those are Brogan's tracks. The weather has messed around with them, but they are his. He came closer to her, putting his hand on her supple shoulder. Look, Kaylee, I know you're scared. We all are. She stared up at his arrogant smile, the false smile of a skilled liar. One who knew his lie was like gospel. A preacher to his lambs. He turned back to the rest while placing his hand on Mac's shoulder, squeezing like a brother in arms. Mac and I will go and find Brogan. Riley, Meg and Sammy, and you can go back. Sort everything out, pack the cars and be ready for us to leave. Riley, I'm taking Champ. Dad trained him for home defence, but he's also a tracker, so I need him. Everyone complied, without even a moment's thought. Kaylee knew she had lost, but the fact that everyone bought it so easily. He's up to something, she thought to herself. I just don't know what. It's going to be dark soon, so get back to the house fast and have everything ready. Once we find him, We will need medical attention, so we need to leave as soon as we can. And with that, the group departed. The girls, being led by Riley, backtracked until they found the trail leading towards the house. Jason and Mac followed Champ, whom, being a member of the Tervaran breed, took to follow in the tracks like instinct. Sunlight was falling. Evening was turning to night as the three felt the unmistakable crunch of gravel beneath their feet. This is the old lumber mill. I've never actually been here. Jason stood for a second, waiting for some sort of response. He didn't hear a voice, but the sound of someone wrestling with a thicket. He swiveled to discover that Mac had somehow dug out an old axe from beneath a bramble bush. Jason smirked. You know, for protection, bro. I ain't going anywhere dark and creepy without a weapon. Jason removed the pack from his shoulders. He ripped open a bag, and from the deepest reaches, he removed something metallic. Mac knew what it was, for Jason had shown him this before. It was a gun his father's kept beneath his bed. Whoa, Jay, why have you got that? For protection. My dad knows I have it. Just stay behind me. The suspicion that had arose in Mac when he saw Jason's actions at the wreck began to grow like a tumour. And like a tumour, suspicion grew, filling Mac with doubt. The doubt that his lifelong friend, to whom there had been no secrets, was now lying to his face. Mac knew that Jason's father, a serving police sergeant, taught him the basics, but he couldn't allow a 19-year-old to carry one of his pistols. There was also the simple fact that Jason told his father they were going to the twins' lake house. Jason would have no reason to need the protection. Mac became very suspicious. He looked on as Jason loaded and then chambered the Glock before stuffing several other loaded clips into his belt before slinging a rucksack back into position. He then held out his hand to his side and felt the tickle of the Belgian Shepherd's fur run through his hands. He whimpered softly. Jason looked down and winked. Champ, stay. You too, Mac, stay here, in case he comes along. They did. They stood and watched as Jason advanced onto the abandoned building, finally disappearing through an old fire escape. Wham! The door slammed behind him. Shit, he thought. It must have been the wind. Okay, Jason, get yourself together. He fumbled with the flashlight on his shoulder strap, flicking it on. He saw a trail of blood leading onto the darkness. Jason would have never known if he hadn't spotted the faint shine of the blood-stained gold links. It was barely visible under the flies and congealed blood. The gold chain necklace that belonged to Brogan. The jewellery still slung over the stump that should have been his head. Something had rendered this from his shoulders. This horrified Jason. It was not cut but ripped vertically and left nought but his windpipe and tongue. Before long, he was firing off rounds into the rafters. Something was on the upper levels. Glowing yellow eyes flickered and flashed in the darkness. It was fast. He couldn't keep his light on it for more than a second. It was after him. He scanned with the fading light for any signs indicating an exit, any hope of escape. A war cry, more than half filled with fear, poured in along with moonlight. A tall man wearing a backpack and a hoodie with an axe in both hands stood fierce in the doorway. It had just kicked open. Before he could make out heads or tails of anything, Mac was flat on his back, brown hair ruffled under his nose. A wriggling 19-year-old Jason sprang like a jackrabbit to his feet, turning back only to grab the handle of the peeling metal door. He slammed the rusting fire escape with such violence the disused hinges squealed along with the peeled paint pinging off in every direction. Mac realised he had tackled him from the darkness. "Jay, what the fuck?" He stopped after seeing him stand there. His face said it all. He was scared. For the first time, Mac had seen his friend scared. "Get up, now!" Before Mac had a chance to stand himself, Jason heaved him up with a powerful jerk. Mac's ears felt like they would bleed. A ringing guttural howl echoed from the dark abyss of the mill. He grabbed his axe, and the two boys had no time to decide. Something slammed into the other side of the metal door, and a dent in the rusted steel was growing. They ditched the packs. Their legs were already working overtime, and they ran like professional quarterbacks, jumping ditches, clearing fallen trees, like a couple of outlaws escaping the King's justice. Two boys who were literally running for their lives. Running side by side for what felt like an Olympic marathon, Mac had finally regained control of his limbs, grabbed his friend and dragged him to the ground, hiding them both away in a deep, sizable deadfall created cover. Mac's eyes had the coldest glare Jason had ever witnessed. Fury had built itself up as they ran. Mac might not have been able to fully control his flight instincts, but his brain went into overdrive. "You need to start talking, man." "I will. Mac, I promise I will. But not now. This isn't the place." Jason's head was on a swivel. Every direction he felt he could see movement. The dusk light was fading and giving way to the ghostly glow of moonlight that was dawning. A beating roar raged above the nocturnal souls of the forest, silencing all but cold breeze. The two were visibly tense with fear. This time, the call was getting closer. "Oh shit! It's coming, Mac! We can't outrun it. Not if we run together. We have to distract it." "What the fuck, Jason? You want me to die so you can get home safe?" "No, Mac! I will!" Jay reached back and pulled the Glock from the belt holding his pants. Removing the magazine, his shaking hand steadied. 12. That's what I have left." "Jay, that's crazy, bro. No! No way are you going to kill it, not with that." "Oh, I don't care. This was my fault. I should have listened, Mac. Mac, do something for me." He looked at his best mate in the eyes. "Get them home. The others." Mac was full of hate for the man squatting next to him. He hated him for putting him in that position, for being selfish, letting his curiosity compromise the safety of his friends. He wanted to break his nose. Mac took a moment to reflect on everything. As much as he hated Jason, he knew he couldn't hold it against him. Who in their right mind would believe the ravings of a dying man, along with a stupid family story? Anyone with even an ounce of adventure, and Mac knew Jason. He had plenty. Anyone would want to investigate, find the truth, be the one to finally work out the riddle. Mac couldn't hold this against him. He knew, after all, Jason was only human. He nodded slowly. "Yo, what about Riley? He won't leave without you. Neither would Meg." "I know, Mac. When you reach the house, get them into the cars. If I don't make it back in an hour and a half, lie to them. Tell them. Tell them that I didn't make it." The two readied themselves. They turned and did something they hadn't done in 7 years. A special handshake they used as kids. They knew now it may be the last time they were together. Jason stood and held a hand to his old friend. They were both trembling with adrenaline or fear. Neither could tell. Jason gave one last nod to his friend and then turned to face and look back at Mac, a twitch in his eye. "Sorry." The imperceptible twist of Jason's wrist was too sudden for Mac to even acknowledge. Bang! The flash of the brass casing was like a glinting star, falling as it caught the moon's reflection. Mac instantly fell back onto the mossy ground beneath him, ringing in his ears. It felt like the caress of a butterfly's wing compared to the hot agonizing pain it was engulfing his left leg. He pressed his hands over the fleshy-made wound, desperate to breach the flow of blood. "Ah, you fucking crazy!" "I knew when we found Blake. I knew everything was true. Along with that, Brogan would be dead. I wanted revenge. Not for them. I couldn't have cared less about them. I wanted revenge on this thing that killed my uncle. The same thing that scared my dad into abandoning this valley. My valley. I thought I'd find out the truth. Then when I had evidence, I'd bring the world down on this fucking thing. But I needed more than a motive. I needed proof. I had to create the story that would bring every camera, every reporter to my feet. Nothing better than a tragedy like a group of friends being massacred by a monster in the woods. And it all fell into place when those stoners said that they'd be arriving at night. Idiots. You never drive this road at night. He smiled sadistically. It's easy to crash at night. "Oh, damn it!" Max squeezed tighter, trying to stem the bleeding. And his breathing was deep. The adrenaline from being shot was making his leg bleed faster. "Man, you're a fucking arsehole!" "Now, I know it's real, and it's coming down to one of us making it and the other not." Jason paused his rant. "I'm an arsehole. Why? For sacrificing you. You owe me." His eyes spasmed like that of a true psychopath. "Remember the day you chased that basketball into the road? Miss Ninsky nearly ran you over. That day, I saved your life. Gave you a second chance. Another 6 years. He leaned down over the freshman and grinned, ear to ear. Now I guess it's your turn to give me a second chance. Sounds pretty fair to me. I also must make you the third victim. Now that you know my plan, you have to die." He screamed a fierce battle cry. Within the never-ending void, something responded. It's sad that it came to be like this. And with that, Jason made his dash into the shadows, continuing his retreat. Mac was alone. Although he knew that that was a fainted reality. He knew that whatever Jason had found in the old mill, whatever had destroyed the twins' truck, whatever it was, he knew it was near. He had little time. His right arm raised and tore his hoodie at the shoulder on the left, taking the sleeve he had bandaged it around his wound. He then removed his belt and had a design where the holes ran the entire length. It was entirely coincidental, but Mac thanked his lucky stars he chose to bring that one. Tenderly, he began to wrap it around his calf, just above his makeshift bandage. Taking in a deep breath, he tightened. The pain was incredible. He knew it would hurt, but it felt like it would pass out at any moment. He fiddled with the buckle, but the pin was between the holes. He had no choice. The belt had to be tightened even further. He did. The desire to scream out in pain was flooding his mind. Mac knew it would spell his doom if he did. He paused. The pain was making his jaw tighten like a vice. The last thing he wanted to do was break his teeth. So, he pulled up the collar of his hoodie and stuffed it into the corner of his mouth. He took another deep breath and then he took several more for good luck. Sweat was forming on his forehead, even though the night was frosty. Droplets huddled together on his brows, as if they were tiny animals trying to stay warm. If I don't do this, he said to himself, I know I'll pass out before I can get my hands on that arsehole. Mac's hand gripped the leather strap and pulled. The pain made him bite down, and he thought that at any moment he'd go through the fabric. He was millimetres from that hole he needed. He knew at this point he had to make one final pull, and he did. The pain couldn't be held by his tongue any longer. Ah! He knew he'd just given up his hiding spot to whatever that was after them, and like clockwork, a terrifying howl showered over the forest. It was closing in on Mac, and he could feel it in his bones. His desperation climaxed as he fiddled with the pin. Finally, the pin punched home, not a moment too soon as Mac felt a massive thud land only yards behind them at a fallen trunk. He heard the raspy breath, heavy steps, and knew his cry of pain had sealed his deal. He did the only thing that came to mind. He lay flat and rolled over, squeezing himself into the space between the old fir. Something leaped, landing on the horizontal tree. He held his breath, laid motionless. His ears could make out the splintering of claws digging into the dead bark, followed by a heavy sniffing. Mac couldn't help himself. He had to look. There, only a few feet away, was the enormous head, neck and chest of a monstrous creature. It was leaning down from the top of the trunk, sniffing the area where the two had taken shelter. Oh my God, he thought. There were rounds on its upper body, small holes with drying blood matted into the fur. Jason, he thought. In an instant, the humongous head ceased its sniffing. It looked forward and growled, adorning the air with vibrations. It climbed down from the trunk and continued to sniff the footprints Jason had made during his escape. It stepped forward, its body became illuminated as it passed into a beam of moonlight. Mac finally got a full view of the beast. It was on all fours, long, powerful arms, a humanist-looking chest and back legs that seemed to Mac were between those of a human and a wolf's. It then did something that shook him to the very centre of his heart. It stood upright. The remaining ear twitched of the monster's titanic head. It dropped back to all fours, and as if a spectral entity, a fleeting shadow, the beast leaped, vanishing into the depths of the moonlit forest, following in the direction Jason had fled. Mac gasped for air. His heart was finally able to slow for the first time. Relief consumed him, but it was quickly burnt out by the feeling of dread. How could something like that exist? That was the thing Jason wanted to find. He was flooded with panic. Oh fuck, Sammy, the others! I've got to get everyone out of here. His mind paused for a moment. The panic in his heart was being exchanged with fury. And Jason. He asked himself, grinding his teeth so they cracked. Jason, I am going to kill him.
The Buckthorn Valley Horror. The final. Let's
get straight into that. A flash of lightning heralded the coming of a storm. Rain began to beat down on the roof. Jason peered in from the door side window. Inside, he could see Riley, standing in the hall. He was talking to someone. He knew from the look on his face something was off. He banged on the glass. The echoing sound made his little brother jump out of his skin. "Hey, open up! Open the fucking door!" Jason's head was on a swivel as he pounded a frame to the back door. It gave way and he shoved past his brother, making a beeline towards the front door. "Hey, what the hell, Jay? Shut up and get your shit. Is everything packed?" "Jason, don't give me any shit, Riley. Are the cars ready or not?" The noise of feet running on the second floor drew the attention of the two arguing boys. "Jason?" A tall brunette appeared around the corner of the staircase. She traversed the steps with a short hobble, then finally landing in Jason's arms. "Oh God," she wept. "Jay, what the fuck's going on?" "Meg, what's wrong with your leg?" "I fucking slipped on the way back. I'm pretty sure it's twisted." He got down and inspected the swollen leg. The look in his eyes didn't bode well. "Did you get everything and get it in the cars?" "Jason, the cars?" "Yeah, the cars." "Yeah, are your ears blocked?" And with that he pushed her back to an arm's reach away. "Is everything packed or not?" "Ouch! No, Jason. There's something." "Mac!" The short black girl with an afro leaned out from the inside balcony. She scanned the floor with her eyes filled with anxiety. But she didn't see her boyfriend. "Where is he?" "You were meant to be with him." "Come on, we found Brogan." Jay paused. He hadn't come up with a decent lie to tell. But he twisted his foot. "It's bad, so Max stayed with them. They're waiting for us on the road, somewhere, not far from the wreck. Get in the cars and go." "You're lying." A voice from the far corner of the fireplace. A blonde girl, no more than 16, sat with a Belgian shepherd by her fireplace. Nobody had even noticed Kaylee. She wanted it that way. She wanted to see Jason return, alone and with a wild look on his face, a look Kaylee had anticipated. "You probably didn't even find Brogan, at least not alive. And Mac, I bet whatever killed Brogan caught up with you. I bet you shot him and left him as bait so you could get away. I know. I heard the gunshot." She stood up, rousing the shaggy dog, her fist clenched so tight, and for a moment she thought she would break her own fingers. Not once did her gaze break, and Jason felt that her eyes were ablaze, burning hotter than the coals in the fireplace beside her. "And we can't go anywhere," she growled with each word. Her lips began to quiver as if her words had such anger. Her lips trembled with fear as they were spoke. "Because something destroyed the cars." Jason went red. "How?" He thought to himself. "How could that thing get to the cars and destroy them? It hadn't even caught up with me and Mac." "Are you still trying to spread that shit?" "No one believes you, little girl." "Jason, she saw it. She saw the bear." "Shut up, Megan. I told you, it wasn't a bear. I only saw it for a moment and it was dark, but it was like a wolf. Its ears, they were moving like it was listening for something. It only left about 5 minutes before you began smashing on the door." Jason couldn't take the heat any longer. His blood was boiling. The girl was making everything difficult for him. Every turn she was on his tail. He wanted her to be silent. "Shut up, you bitch!" Lightning cracked like a whip in the sky. From nowhere, the shepherd dog began to growl. "Champ, what's wrong?" The dog stood frozen. Only his eyes moved and followed the front wall in the direction of the front door. Wham! Something smashed against the wall of the house. Champ went into overload, barking and growling at the front door. Wham! Again! Something sounded like it was attempting to come straight through the timber. A flicker of bulk and fur streaked the front side window. "What the fuck is that? Shut up! Everyone be silent!" "Riley," the rifle on the wall. "Grab it!" Jason reached behind his back and removed the stolen Glock from his cargoes. "Jason, where did you get that?" Megan's reaction was startling. It was enough to make Riley look back. "Wow, man, that's Dad's. You stole it. Why?" Why do you think? For protection, you idiot. Get the fucking Winchester. His little brother followed his orders and took down the old lever action from its stand. Now go and lock the back door. Riley nodded with hesitation. The Belgian shepherd was still barking, but he was searching, like he now wasn't sure where his enemy was. Riley pulled the old bolt lock down, but like the typical 17-year-old who had never been in a situation where fear was real element, his trembling hands lost grip for a moment. The rifle slipped and collided with the window shelf, and everyone was silent. All was staring at the frightened blonde-haired teenage boy. I'm so sorry. It slipped. I didn't mean to. Jay didn't reply. His fixed stare made Riley's heart sink. Champ began to growl. Something was looking through the window. The two freshman girls screamed while Kaylee wasn't even able to utter a sound. Before anyone could react, a monstrous figure burst through the glass. Its huge canine sank deep into the soft tissue of the 17-year-old's neck. The girls screamed like wailing harpies, and Jason felt powerless. He fired repeatedly. Bam, bam, bam! Rounds whistled past, some making their mark, and the beast didn't even flinch. Riley said nothing. He couldn't. His mouth was spewing blood and bile. A long, hair-covered hand ripped the soft tissue of his stomach, spilling his bile across the floor as he fell limp. Caught in the beast's jaws, it retreated, blood running over the window shelf as Riley's limp body disappeared into the abyss. Riley! Jay fell to his knees. He began to regret ever allowing his brother to come out here. He didn't care about the others, but Riley, he was his family, his blood. Blood is the best sacrifice for life, he whispered before rising. Megan screamed at him. Jason, what the fuck was that thing? He didn't have time to reply. The window was once more occupied by the hideous figure, and Riley's blood was fresh upon its chin. What happened next was not to be expected by any of the four who were witness. The Belgian shepherd barked like never before, and then began his sprint, leaping through the air, claw and fang colliding with the abomination and sending both toppling into the black abyss. Champ! Has it distracted? It's time! I'm getting out! What? How do you plan to leave, Jason? There's no way out. That thing will come back and we can't drive because the cars are shredded. He turned, staring her deep in the eyes. They are, but the four-wheeler isn't, and there's only space for one. I'm sorry. Kaylee couldn't take any more. You son of a bitch! She raised her fists and flew at him. He was too fast. He slammed her in the guts, and instantly the girl crumpled. As she did, vomit spewed over his feet. You silly bitch. That's why I will survive and you won't. He snatched a clump of her hair, holding it fast as he slammed his knee into her nose and connecting with a crack of bone. Let her go, Jason. Megan ran as best as she could to assist her, helping support her jellied legs to let her stand. Blood poured from her face, and he had, without a shadow of a doubt, broken her nose. Sammy was quick to join them, as she too helped the small blonde to stand. You draw on the three. Get back! Megan looked up at the dark-haired man. Why, Jason? How could you do this to us? To me? Sorry, Meg. One day, we knew we'd break up. Consider this that day. And besides, with your leg, it will only slow me down. She sat in his face. Then I hope it kills you. It might be a beast, but you? You're the real monster. He scrunched his nose. A sinister, smug grin was painted all over his face. Jason tried to back up, forever keeping his weapon trained on the three. Thud. He felt the threshold of the front door on his heel. Have a nice time, ladies. It will be all over soon. He turned and gripped the handle, twisting the key. The latch came open and Jason stepped back to make his escape. Lightning flashed in the terrifying dark of the night sky. In its light, the shadow, something, stood in the open doorway. Oh my God! He stumbled back, dazed, confused, bleeding. His head was spurting blood, an axe half stuck in him between the eyes, and he fell again. The axe dived through the air, its handle humming as it connected with Jason's skull, shaking the sweat from his hair as he slipped to the side and blood dripped from his ear. "Mac!" Sammy rushed to him, her arms wrapped around his chest like a constricting snake. She didn't even realise his hoodie was soaked through. How you made it? I thought... She began to grizzle even harder, pulling him in so tight he was getting short of breath. "I thought you were dead. That it had got you. Jason said... He said..." "Shh. Shh. It's okay." He stumbled slightly, losing his footing under the pain. "Easy, Sammy. My legs are bad." She looked down. "Oh my God. You're bleeding, Mac. What happened?" "That asshole shot me." He sighed. "But we don't have any more time. Come on. We need to get upstairs." Lock the doors and bunker down. The four found themselves locked in the top floor bathroom. No windows large enough for anything to get in. They even went through the trouble of blocking the bedroom stairs with a substantial dresser, one that took 3 of them to move into place. Megan was filling a glass with some tap water, while Sammy set to work ripping up a hand towel. The sound of a blocked nose sniffling, followed closely by a small wince of pain, was coming from the blonde-haired girl who was busy searching a bathroom cabinet. "Ah, here. Something for the pain." She spun around. "Here, Mac. Take some of these." She handed him the pills and sat on in the corner behind him. This bathroom was small. A tiled floor, wood-patterned walls, a simple shower, toilet, sink, and not much else. Nonetheless, it wasn't meant to have 4 people in at once. Sammy climbed down on her knees, a makeshift bandage from the towel in hand. "I've got to rewrap this, Mac." She pointed to the bloodied hoodie sleeve that covered the gunshot. He wasn't keen on the idea. The smell of blood wouldn't help keep them hidden. But he knew he'd benefit if it was properly wrapped. "Huh? Go on then. Be quick, Sammy." Megan handed him the glass, and he guzzled it, greedily scoffing the pills Kaylee had given him, as he did. Megan had that face he had come to know all too well. He knew what was coming next. "Tell us, Mac. What the fuck happened out there?" He sat up from his previously slouched position. "After we split up, me and Jason found the old mill. He went to check it out, told me to wait in case Brogan came wandering in. Next thing I know, all I heard is screams and rounds going off. I found this axe and I went after him. He came bursting out, put me flat on my back." He paused, as if reciting this nightmare to the others made it feel more real. He had this mad look in his eye, shouting something about monster and that we had to go, so we ran. Ran like our lives depended upon it. After a while, I worked out that he was lying about something. Something he didn't want us to know, so I did the dumbest thing possible. I confronted the motherfucker. He span some story about how he wanted to find that thing, bring the world down on it. Something about revenge and having a story that everyone would believe. Then the arsehole shot me. Left me like a chew toy for that thing out there. Matt looked up at the 3. That's why he needed us. We were his story. He was going to let that thing kill us, and when he got away, he would have proof, because whoever got away with him would tell the same story. The whole speech at the wreck, it was a lie, like you thought, Kaylee. He wanted it to kill someone. Some of us, the twins, were baiting to draw it out. Megan stopped. "What about Jason?" Mac's face screwed in disbelief. "Why? That arsehole shot me. He was planning to leave you lot for dead. He caused all this shit." "Yeah, he was. He's probably still knocked out, or he might be dead. I don't know. I don't give a damn either." Megan, her eyes shone and flicker, a flash of an idea. He said something. "About driving out." "What? What do you mean? I saw the cars. They're completely scrapped." "Isn't there no way in hell we can..." Sammy was about to correct her boyfriend. She didn't get the chance. "He meant a 4-wheeler. He said there's one in the garage." "Yeah, but that could only take one of us, maybe 2. No way all 4. Kaylee was nursing her busted nose, trying her best to pay attention to the blabbering, and she finally decided to contribute. She sniffed. Blood had blocked her nose, turning her perfectly articulated voice into a pitiful buzzing excuse of communication. Only one of us has to go and get help. No, did you forget what I said? You can't drive out at this time. You saw what happened to the twins. What? So what do we do? Mac's reply was accompanied with a long, drawn-out sigh. I think this thing hunts at night. Jason only invited the twins because he knew they'd be late. Being outside in this place late at night is a death sentence. A sniffle from a broken nose. We need a distraction. You said that this thing hunts at night, so we can't be outside in the dark. Yeah, but... Well then, what if that thing isn't outside, but stuck in here? Then we can get the hell out of here. Mac, did you get a look at the cars? Were they wrecked, or would one still go? He stressed his thoughts. I don't know. Jason's was completely toast. The battery was ripped out, but... Wait. I think the bug was okay. No, I remember the tyres were slashed. It had claw marks on the tyres and the arches. The fucker probably didn't have time to finish the job. He slumped down. His forehead rested against one of his good knees. Fuck, man. He sighed again. What kind of messed up government experiment is this thing? I mean, to know how to mess up a car, to know we needed them to leave? We don't stand a chance. Maybe we do. Another sniff from her blocked nose. Megan, remember when we were coming home from the mall, that evening in the spring? We were coming around that one shitty bend and that arsehole swerved at us. Megan was totally surprised by the reconciliation, mainly as she couldn't for the life of her work out what in hell it had to do with the current situation. Yeah, I remember. What does that have to do with us getting away from some demonic monster trying to eat us? You blew both your wheels on the curb, and Dad had your car fitted with new tyres. A complete new set. Don't you get it? He had run flats put on, in case you ever blew one again. He called it his contingency, so you'd get home and save the recovery bill. Wait, you're saying... Yes! If the bug can be driven, we can get out. The only thing is your leg. You can't drive at that ankle. Mac, you'll have to do it. You forget the most important part, Kaylee. Mac looked at the young girl. His eyes pinned her, and she knew the question he was going to ask next. How the hell do we trap that thing? She already knew the answer she was going to give. Look, I know we can't just walk out and hop in a car and leave. So how do we get out? We trap it in the laundry room. Concrete floor. Thick walls, no windows, and a fire door. Strong enough to give us a few moments at least. If we can't do that, we kill it, because it sure as hell won't sit by and let us leave. How do we get that monster to walk into a stingy laundry room? Give it some washing? Sammy looked at them both with an expression that meant one thing. She had a plan. Everything on the lower levels looked to Sammy to be quiet. She creeped forward, staying low and against the wall as she reached the landing. Peering through the wooden banisters, she made out to the grey cargoes of a muddy hiking boot. Jason's still down there. He's not moved. She continued, creeping like a mouse till she could see the back door. Blood covered the remaining of the shattered window glass, littering the floor in a radius, partly only by pathway of blood. 2 scores in a red path, wiped by Riley's boots as his limp corpse was ripped into the black hell of night. She had no control. Her mind replayed the horror that unfolded only an hour before. She winced, and a tear came to her eye. He was too sweet, too kind. He didn't deserve a death like that, she thought to herself. No one did. She stopped herself and took a breath to calm her nerves. Turning her gaze back, she gave a nod to the others. It was time to set the trap. The laundry room door opened at a twist. The door was heavy, a good sign, she thought. It moved silently, although it did sweep away several pieces from the shattered window as it did. She peered in. It was dank, an old washer in the end corner, some powder on a shelf above. This might actually work, she thought. Stepping down the concrete steps, she set up the pillow mannequin. She had the idea to take Jason's clothes and stuff them, make them look like a person. Put on his puffer coat and pull up the hood, and then stuff Mac's blood-covered hoodie sleeve down the collar. She leaned the mannequin against the machine, facing away, and then pulled out her cell. She placed it on the shelf and pressed the play, a voicemail she had from her mum, and the others had managed to set the audio to play in a loop. The sound of the woman's soft voice almost brings the Afro-sporting girl to tears. She wanted nothing more than to hug her mother once more. A moment passed, and she snapped to her senses. She snuck out, leaving the door open and simultaneously releasing the catch to the back door. She could see the others hiding in position, ready to make a dash to the front door, and once the trap had sprung, she nimbly slid into position around the corner of the kitchen. There she waited. The house was eerily silent. All slept for the clanging of the back door swung in the breeze of the storm. None of them knew how long it had been before the sound of heavy footfall came from the wet abyss. It had come. Suddenly the door didn't slam but bounced against something, and the footsteps ended at the doorway. Powerful breathing was taken in the sense of the house. Sammy held her breath, doing everything she could possibly do not to give away her hiding place. The footsteps continued. The sound of glass shards skating across the varnished floor, some of which tumbled down the concrete stairs, were followed with the sound of a sinister growl reverberating from the laundry room. Suddenly, the room was consumed with a smashing of metal and pillows. A frightful holler was the signal that the trap had worked. Now! She flew around the corner, slamming the door with all her might. It was stuck. She looked down. A piece of glass lodged itself between the fire door and its frame. The beast span on the spot, yellow eyes glaring from the darkness of the dank room. Fear was consuming her. She knew she had only seconds left. It approached the jarred door, acting out of instinct. She swung the door open. Her foot booted the shard, sending it spiralling towards the towering animal. She took a single look. Its horrifying appearance, with Riley's blood still matted in its fur. The whole image churned her innards. Rotting hell! She slammed the door home. Fury was tangible in its scream of rage. It hammered on the reinforced wood of the fire door. It held strong. She turned and slumped, her hands resting on her knees. She couldn't help but smile. Looking up, her friends emerged from their hiding place. One of them shouted, "Come on, now's our chance!" Regaining her stance, she took a step towards freedom. The rejoice on their faces was cut down by the splintering of wood. The fire door flew open, knocking her several yards forward, and her body collided with the wooden floor. She got to her knees, crawling forward in desperation to clear the scene. Her attempts were in vain. The beast lunged from the room, grabbing her by the leg and dragging her in, where it commenced its attack. Smashing her defensive arms aside, it ripped into her throat, and she muffled a scream before going limp beneath the hulking beast. "Sammy!" Mac was fueled with intense rage. He charged the blood-soaked monster, his axe in hand. The beast rose from her body, but it was caught off guard with Mac's speed. He swung low from the left, and the edge of the axe blade glided like butter through the muscle in the creature's neck. It howled in agony, and blood squirted from the gaping wound. Using the momentum from his first strike, he swung again, and this one was aimed directly down. His muscles felt more like hydraulics as he struck. This time, he cleaved into the creature's long, blood-stained snout, pulverizing the jawbones and sending jagged teeth in every direction. One finally defined scream of rage as he swung the axe from above, and the blow catching the monster in the forehead, splitting it, and its head like a pumpkin. The blow was so immense, the shaft of the axe cracked and splintered. Spasming limbs then slumped as horror dropped to the ground beside the bloody corpse of the 18-year-old girl. She was motionless. Mac fell to his knees. The pain in his leg was nothing compared to the wrenching agony he felt inside. His shaking hand slipped over her cheek. The other clasped at the remnants of life in her limp hand. Tears rolled like the flood from his bleeding of his heart to the edge of his chin. The droplets of his suffering fell upon her chest. Her eyes still moved. She looked at him. "I'm sorry, Sammy. Please hold on, please." She was unable to reply, but her eyes spoke one word. Mac knew what she meant. "I love you too." The flickers of life washed away as blood still pulsated from her severed neck. He leant down, placing one final kiss upon her forehead. He stood. The visage of Megan's neatly proportioned face could only be described as the physical reaction to a complete and total sinking of one's heart. Something played on in his thoughts. Something was different. That monster looked much stronger in the woods. If someone had told him a few swings of an axe would do the job, he probably would have punched them. Kaylee begged the question everyone had, but no one wanted to ask. "What do you think it is?" Mac was puffing, a tear still rolling down his cheek. It looks like a fucking werewolf," responded Megan. The two girls looked at him. He was motionless, all apart from the tears that streamed down his face. "It killed Sammy. We have to go." Like a hound dashing after a rabbit, Jason's still body shot towards the front door, twisted the handle, and releasing it from the shakes of its latch, it blew open with a tremendous force. Jason couldn't believe his eyes. He fell backwards and landed on his behind. Mac forced his eyes on the huge, dark shadow in the doorway. Crack! Another flash of lightning lit up the stormy sky. A beast. This one only had one ear. In that instant, everything clicked in his brain. The monster he'd killed, it looked different, too clean, no scars or wounds. It had two ears. He knew this one was the one he saw in the woods. This one was much bigger. Jason scooted back, twisting as he attempted to stand. But the hideous monster was already upon him, and he was swatted aside by the gargantuan wolf. He hit the courtroom door with such force the hinges gave way and the entirety of the door collapsed beneath him. "Run! Get to the car! Go!" Mac, still filled with adrenaline, ripped the axe from the first carcass and advanced on the second monstrosity. Weapon raised, he swung at the advancing foe. But this beast wasn't the fresh, inexperienced pup that the first had been. It slipped the blow as it did. 5 razor-sharp black claws tore Mac across the chest. The impact was so great that the axe flew from its grasp and collided with the wall. And like lightning, the creature snatched him up by the throat. Its long, dark, beastly digits twitched as it slowly lifted him off his feet, crushing his windpipe as it did. Mac was thrashing in the grips of an 8-foot-tall monster, slamming his fists into the bulky forearm as he wiggled in vain. Megan and Kaylee, whom had jumped towards the stairs when the monster appeared, were now watching these events unfold from the top. Both felt utterly helpless. Mac looked at them. His face was going purple as he wheezed a final sentence. "Run!" His neck made a visual crunching sound, and the wolf growled, opening its maw and drooling. It didn't stop his limp body. It continued to clamp down, claws sliced ever deeper into the tissue, until his head popped from its seat, spraying blood in every direction. The remains of Mac fell to the floor, crumpled and headless. The sound of the garage doors quickly followed by the roar of the four-wheeler's engine, breathing to life, was enough to startle the terrified sisters from their trance. However, the beast was the quickest to react. It turned its focus to the revving engine as it sped out of the circular drive. Its cry was swelling with rage as it bounded back through the open door in pursuit of the blonde-haired man. Megan looked towards her little sister, who, before she could even say otherwise, had already made it to the bottom of the stairs. "Wait!" she cried. Shots rang out, drawing Kaylee to stare out the front door. From the abyss, another shot, followed by the accosting howl of an enraged monster. Kaylee returned to her goal. She ran towards the shattered window, and Megan came storming down the stairs, blatantly disregarding her twisted ankle. "What are you doing? We should be getting in a car and leaving while we can," she screamed with desperation to understand her. Kaylee reached the back wall, searching the area before she finally spotted her old rifle. It had been swept aside during Mac's fight with the first monster, but she was quick to snatch it up. "Get to the car!" she screamed. Meg knew that her sister had a plan, and without much hesitation, she stumbled towards the door. The two could still hear the four-wheeler in the distance, and the enraged beast who bellowed out. Kaylee met her sister at the porch and scooped under her arm, supporting her leg as they stumbled into the soaking night. Eventually, they reached the bug, and the wheels were as they had hoped. Megan handed over the keys and in exchange received the rifle. "You shoot, I'll drive," she said. Meg looked at the gun and cocked the lever, ejecting a spent shell. "Let's go." The two sat in the VW, both trying to keep an eye out, while Kaylee started the engine. Neither of them had heard the roars or the four-wheeler since they had reached the car, but they knew they would eventually find out Jason's fate, as they too had to drive the same road. The bug was noticeably sore, but willing to go, and they made it off the driveway and onto the dirt road. They went as fast as they would dare to go. Too much speed would run the risk of ripping one of the already damaged tyres. "Megan, if you see that thing, make sure you aim. We'll probably only have a few shots. Aim for the throat or the mouth. Those are the only parts that looked vulnerable." Meg looked at her sister with astonishment. How could she have even been so calm that she was able to assess where the best shot for that thing was? Suddenly, a powerful vibrating roar consumed the cold night. "Step on it, go!" Kaylee did what she was told. Ignoring her fears the tyres would fail, she succumbed to this new fear. "And keep a lookout, Meg. If you see it, fire." The two came to the shallow curve in the road. In the ditch sat the four-wheeler. They knew that Jason had not made it, as not 20 feet past it lay his mangled body. "Oh my God! Megan, behind us! Look out!" From the tree line came a fast-moving dark figure. It dashed behind the car, and the two felt the back end shuffle. Again, from the other side, Kaylee was doing almost 55 miles per hour, and the movement of the back end was making driving very difficult. "Meg, get ready! The next time it swipes the bumper, shoot it!" Megan was visibly distraught, but she nodded to her sister and readied the gun behind her at the back passenger window. "I can't see the thing," she cried. "I know. Just wait until you see it in the moonlight." The shadow appeared once more from the darkness. "It's coming! Get ready! Now!" Megan pulled the trigger, and the rear window was left with a quarter of it missing. A spot of blood spared was repaired on the glass. I think I hit it," she shouted with a sense of triumph to her voice. She span back to her seat and looked at her sister. Kaylee had a look on her face that Megan knew. "You didn't kill it." "What do you mean?" "There was blood." Before she could finish, the rear end of the VW was hit with such force that the entire car was pushed sideways and began to barrel roll. Fragmented windows and lumps of metal flew as the wrecked vehicle came to a crashing halt. Steam corrupted the dark, damp air as it poured from the hood. The driver's side door was now flat against the old, wet asphalt of the loggers' road. Her sister was in the back. Her head was twisted at an abnormal angle, and she laid there, dead. Kaylee had no time to mourn her sister, as she felt the car rock along with the sound of something being scraped against metal. Peering out through the only section of the window screen that was still intact, she saw a pair of dark, wiry, furry legs strike past. She tried her best to reach the rifle that somehow was still inside the car, when the entire cabin became shadowed as all the moonlight from the passenger side window was blocked out. She shivered. A deep growl reflected within a small space, so powerful it made her eardrums buzz. Slowly, able to force her head to turn, she looked up. Two huge glowing yellow orbs were staring into her very soul. She screamed. A malice grin smothered the wolf's lips, and it flashed its yellow-white fangs. Both were several inches and had strands of flesh trapped between them. She had no other option but to look away as saliva, thick with blood, began to stream down from the monstrosity's chin. The sound of a man's voice. "Hey! Over here, you cur!" The grin was instantly removed from the monster's lips. Katie looked through this section of intact window screen. Standing in the simmering moonlight was a man. But this was no ordinary man. He was, well, firstly, wearing some sort of dark cloak, and in his hand he was holding a long, metallic object. The beast seemed to hesitate for a moment before throwing itself tooth and fang at the cloaked figure. The cloaked figure danced around the hurtling beast, swiping away with its object in its hand. Kaylee saw this as her one and only chance. She searched the rifle and, after pausing for a moment to say goodbye to her sister, she reached up for the opening. She could hear screams come from the infuriated beast as she began to climb through the window. She saw the two a small distance down the road. The man was darting from place to place, ducking, weaving, spinning and striking. She climbed from the wreck, only to hear the man shout out, "Get back here!" Her head swiveled to see the hulking figure dash towards the car. She didn't even have time to raise the rifle before the familiar flash of yellow-white teeth was all she could see. She winced for the first time, as she thought this was surely the last time for her, the end. But as she waited for hot breath and crushing agony that was sure to follow, she heard the splinter of bone, and as she opened her eyes, there it stood for a moment in front of her before a gigantic, snarling muzzle with huge glowing orb eyes rolled forwards, toppling from its shoulders. Steam and blood spurted from the headless body, and the monstrous remains descended to the ground as the hair-covered legs folded back at the knees. She peered in disbelief at the face beneath the cloak, the face of a young, dark-haired man. He was sat at his old stained oak desk, reading. The room was spacious, adorned with antique weapons and armour. It was musky, lit only with the candle above his inkwell and the fireplace behind him. The sun was already settled behind the trees and rooftops when she came. A knock on the door, and his head rose from reading. His well-pronounced yet slightly rougher voice replied, "Enter," and she did. He was pondering something that was clear to her as she stood to attention. He was in his leather tunic, a uniform embroidered with the guild crest, a colour representing his rank. He was a guild master, and his colour was gold. His ornamental brooch above the crest, 3 swords, a sign to all that he was the master of blades. Ventus was a man of stature, one whose presence was felt in the room, no matter the number of occupancies. No doubt because he was well-respected, high-ranking member of the guild. He was honourable. Ulvik knew that. But, unbeknown to his subordinate, he was also a man with a secret. "Master Ventus, you wish to see me?" "I did, Ulvik. I want to discuss this report from the last assignment I gave you." "Of course, sir. What would you like to discuss?" She was never questionable of her superiors. "Tell me what happened. I want to hear it off the record." "Sir, one of our navigators managed to trace the rapture to its source. A Vargolf passed through. I dispatched a navigator, 2 hunters and a bladesman. They returned with a successful outcome." He sighed. "Come now, I already know that. I want to know what you haven't put on the report. How it went." "Well, they reported as a success. They retrieved the body. Our disposal team have dealt with the Vargolf's remains." He pondered, his arm resting on his desk, rubbing his short black beard. A Vargolf. How long?" "Well, that's the thing. The Maggie navigator believes it has been years on the other side, passing back and forth." "Was the creature examined, or do we know its age, or its origins?" "Yes, sir. An older one. We found signs of the 2nd stage transformation. Its origins, all the disposal team could discern is that it was at least 150 years old. But its origins, sir, we aren't sure. All we know is they are coming from somewhere to the south and the navigator said the Rapture had ties to the deep woods. There was one thing, sir. When they came across the house, there was one Vargolf dead at the scene. However, it didn't have any connection to our world. It was a human of their side that was infected. This one was only a few months old, but we believe that's how they managed to kill it, sir. I've seen that before. These people were not the only ones to kill a creature from our world, although it's still impressive. Very good. Ulvik, that will be all. He nodded his head, indicating he was finished with the meeting. She performed a short bow, following the guild customs, and then turned to leave. Just one more thing, Ulvik. The girl from the other side, who made the decision to bring her back. Sir, it was the Bladesman. He was the highest ranking operative. And who was the Bladesman? It was Marcus, sir. Wow, fantastic stuff. Fantastic. Thank you ever so much, S.Binx, for penning that for me. I know you have a very busy lifestyle with kids and work and whatnot, but we really do appreciate you getting that finally finished. I hope you enjoyed my work with it as well. As ever, guys and girls, please do let me know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share and help build this channel and community. And remember, we're trying to smash through the 10k mark before April. I can only do that with your help, your likes, shares and comments. Above all, guys, I hope you're happy and well. And remember, if you're going out to the deep, dark forest of fear, keep your wits about you, eyes and ears open. And above all, be safe, not sorry.